That is truly impressive. The Ukrainian army has surpassed everyone. A lightning-fast reform in the armed forces of Ukraine, and all of this without leaving the battlefield. Counteroffensive actions that even the NATO army applauds. Syrsky forced the enemy to bend. Russia does not understand what is happening. The deep rear has collapsed and the front line is unfolding in the most unexpected places. The drone blockade of Donetsk, a new level of coordination and bold decisions that Russian generals definitely did not anticipate. The first behind-the-scenes details are coming up next.
Major changes on the front line. The Ukrainian army is restructuring itself right in the midst of the war. A new command system, the core reform, has already been launched and, as claimed, could change the course of combat operations.
The very first stage of this process consisted precisely of establishing core headquarters and command bodies. To form them properly, you need highly trained and specialized personnel, not just officers with basic experience. The second stage. The head has already been molded, the brains are working, now we need the hands. A corps, the corps staff, consists of brigades and other subordinate units. Now, they need to be united. This is about assembling the body.
In fact, this is about transitioning to a model that has long been used in NATO countries. There, corps are responsible for entire sections of the front and command large-scale operations.
A mass army requires command bodies at the operational strategic level. This is not a small expeditionary army, so this became the reason. Necessity became the reason for the changes.
Previously, many units operated separately. Now they are being combined into larger structures with a clear area of responsibility and unified planning. But what is the main practical difference for the front?
Victory shouldn't be achieved through heroism. It should be achieved through the organization of the troops, so that the soldier doesn't have to resort to heroism. Heroism means that the situation is already extreme. But the military machine should be built in such a way that through organization, it creates an advantage over the enemy.
But is the new reform really already having an impact on the front? In particular, is it helping to hold back the enemy and reduce territorial losses?
The brigade-level corps command system has already allowed us to eliminate that Dobropilya salient. In the same direction, the 7th Air Assault Corps is currently operating. The military unit itself is still not yet completely established or fully formed, but the remarkable effectiveness of the work they have done so far has allowed us to successfully hold the defense in the most intense and hottest sector of the front.
At the same time, Ukrainian forces are conducting local counterattacks in certain areas of the front. But the question remains, are these situational actions all part of a broader strategy?
According to the latest reports from General Syrsky, we have now successfully regained the strategic initiative on the battlefield. In several key sectors, Ukraine's defense forces were able to discreetly and effectively amass significant forces, carefully deploy them, and then transition into a much more robust and active posture of defense. The Russians did not expect this.
Recently, the nature of the war has changed. Ukrainian forces are increasingly striking deep inside Russia, targeting enemy warehouses, headquarters, and logistics. There is no longer a safe rear for the Russians. Azov drones have launched a real hunt for Russian logistics near Donetsk. Ukrainian drones are flying deeper and with greater precision. They are hitting targets in places that, until recently, were considered out of reach of Ukrainian UAVs in Russia.
The entirety of this complex interaction coordination must necessarily be carefully developed and implemented by a single centralized center. And here as well, it's not a course-level reform, but it is a reform of the command system of the armed forces of Ukraine.
Even during the war, the Ukrainian army continues to reorganize and implement new approaches, changing the nature of combat operations. Drone strikes are increasingly going beyond the front line and deep into the rear, expanding the area of impact.
Finally, all the cards are on the table. Budanov is already in Russia, and this is not just a trump card, but an ace up the sleeve that the opponent doesn't even suspect exists. The enemy has miscalculated again. A series of lightning-fast special operations and total furor. The former chief intelligence officer definitely knows how to make an impression on the enemy. Now his appearance at the negotiations is causing panic in the Kremlin, a moment when the game changes dramatically. So what has Kyrylo Budanov prepared for dessert? We'll find out in just a moment.
At the end of 2025, this operation essentially saved the city of Pokrovsk. Hur fighters landed from helicopters to create a corridor for the main units of the armed forces of Ukraine who entered the city to reinforce the defense.
I want to remind you that all this happened against the backdrop of official Russian statements about the capture of the city, when Gerasimov was reporting to Putin that the city had been taken. And here you need to understand what the situation was like at that moment.
At that time, the situation in Pokrovsk was extremely tense. The operation was led by the head of intelligence, Kyrylo Budanov, and it is possible that he even took part in it himself.
This operation achieved its goal. After that, everyone in Russia stopped saying that the city had been taken. They started saying that there was progress, there was success, there were many battles, but they moved away from claiming that everything had been taken.
Russia spread disinformation that during the attempted landing, the entire Khyvrov airborne unit was destroyed. Everyone died. Nothing worked out. Well, it's not the first time they've lied. I was categorically against, of course, releasing some videos and photos to the media, including those with the general, because it's clear that for such a purpose, Russia will find ways. We'll find local people who have left to pinpoint the location to determine the spot.
It turns out this is not the first and not the last time that Ukraine's chief intelligence officer has participated in special operations. This was confirmed in a recent interview by the commander of the Timur Special Unit of the Main Intelligence Directorate. According to the fighter, Budanov personally took part in such raids.
His units went in there. It was first Krahevo, this direction, and he went in himself. Yes. And I'll even show you some photos of where it is. Why did he have to go in with the unit under Kadyrynivka?
At the beginning of the invasion, GOR units repelled a Russian air attack on Gostomel airport. If this operation had failed, Russian troops could have surrounded Kiev in the first week of the war. With the start of Russian aggression in 2014, Kyrylo Budanov, as a member of a Ukrainian intelligence special unit, took part in combat operations in eastern Ukraine, as well as in special GUR operations. He was wounded several times. Most of the operations he participated in remain classified. In 2016, during a special operation in Crimea, Budanov was the commander of a raid that destroyed helicopters at the base in Jankoy. There was a battle there with Russian special forces who were eliminated. During such raids into temporarily occupied territories, Budanov always said that regaining the territories was only a matter of time.
The situation there was like this. Well, honestly, let's just sit right here for a moment, because this specific spot is also our very own original territory from the beginning.
During his leadership of the Main Intelligence Directorate, Budanov transformed the agency into hybrid forces capable of carrying out incredible and complex operations. His success and work as the head of the GUR have been repeatedly covered by global media.
Ukraine's resilience, military, political, and psychological, has shocked the world. One of the most important, yet least discussed elements of this resilience has been the transformation of Ukraine's Main Intelligence Directorate under the leadership of Lieutenant General Kyrylo Budanov. Several months before the invasion, he was one of the few high-ranking officials who issued a public warning.
Now in his position as head of the president's office, Budanov is no less effective, as he is involved in negotiation processes.
If we look publicly at what Budanov influences, we will see that his main impact is precisely on the negotiation process. That is where he is most visible. That is what he talks about the most. He was involved in negotiations in the trilateral format with the US and Russia and is facilitating this negotiation process.
He participated in important special operations and built an effective operation of the Main Intelligence Directorate. Now he is focused on the negotiation component. In every position, Kyrylo Budanov is productive and effective, and his vision ensures that peace negotiations will yield a positive result for Ukraine.